Hi, welcome to the Pearls and Polish podcast. My name is Rachel. I'm your host coming to you from just outside Sacramento, California. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. And if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. This is my little corner of the internet where I talk about mostly knitting, some crochet, and whatever other crafty things we're up to. All the makers, designers, dyers, anyone else I mentioned in today's episode are all going to be linked down below, along with my Instagram and Ravelry pages. So make sure you check those out. Let's see, what do we got today? Not a whole ton. I was able to get I was able to get a couple things finished, and so I'm just now starting new projects. So this will be a little on the shorter side, but that's okay. So let's jump into finished objects, starting with my Encyclopedia of Fairies socks. I feel like I was pretty close to being done with these last week. I finished these pretty early on, so I don't remember. But anyways, these are Nomadic yarns, and I really love her style of dyeing. I think I've done 3 pairs of socks with her yarn, but really love it. And this is on her tweed base. I give all the details on the type of yarn and all that. And the last couple episodes, I didn't bring the tag with me, so I don't have any of that information. But she's linked down below, so make sure you check out her website. But yeah, really love how these turned out. So I made these twins. So I started them in the same place. They all go through at the end. They all end at the same place. The super discerning eye will notice that the toes do not have the same amount of, hold on, let me cover up my face. There we go. They don't have the same amount of cream at the toe. And you know that thing crafters do when you compliment their work and you say, thanks, there's a mistake, let me show you. And I always get in trouble when I say that to like my mom or my aunts or whatnot. They always say like, but we would never have known. Why do you do this? Because we do. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to show you where I should have made a different choice than I did. This is the first sock. And right here where I put in my Afterthought heel, you see that there is just one stripe of purple above that red and below the red. That's where I put my heel in. And I loved it. It lined up beautifully and it was great. I come to do my second sock. And I did the exact same number of rows as I did the first sock, but I had not come up to the purple yet, which happens. Self-sharpening yarn is almost exact, but not exactly exact. And then this is dyed by a person, so it's not going to be an exact replica or a photocopy, which was fine, right? I knew this. And I had a decision to make. I could knit like 2 extra rows to set up my sock so that the heel would be placed in the exact same stripe. And I would have just like 2 more rows on this sock. Or I could follow the rows exactly and have them be slightly different and no one would know but me, but they would be just that bit off. So I decided I had 60 rows on this one. Gosh darn it, I was going to have 60 rows on this one. And after I made that choice and I was halfway through the foot, I kind of started to kick myself as far as, would it have been that bad to add 1 or 2 rows so that they looked exactly the same? It's fine. It's like in the grand scheme of things, it is not the end of the world. But it's one of those choices were made and I didn't like the choice that I made. But you can't tell, and that's the other thing, like, you're not going to be able to tell here on the blockers or in the pictures, or even when I'm wearing them, but I'm going to know, and that's what's going to bother me. Yeah, those are the things that keep me up at night. My other finished object are my socks for my sister. I talked about these in the last couple episodes as well. But these are my high desert socks. I literally cast off and wove in the ends maybe like an hour and a half ago. I did not have to go into the office today. So I was working at home and doing some different things at home. I had a Zoom call. And by the end of my Zoom call, I only had a little bit left of the toe of the second sock. So instead of going and eating lunch like a normal person, I waited and finished my sock and wove in all my ends. And then I went down and ate lunch, even though I was starving. Because that's what I do. But these are done. I do not have the tags for these socks because I gave them away. Yesterday, I had to work from home, or I got to work from home. I didn't have to, but I got to work from home. However, the internet was out at my house. That's a whole nother story. But there was no internet at my house. So I went to my local coffee shop and I sat and I worked and I got all my stuff done. And since there was no internet at my house, I watched, caught up on my YouTube, and I was watching a little bit of Locke and Key, and I was working on my socks. And as I was packing up to go, this lady came over to my table. She said, "Can I ask you what you're making? I can see you knitting and I can see how even your stitches are. Can I ask you what you're making?" So I said, "Yeah, I'm making socks." And so I ended up talking to her and her sister and her daughter, and she just had a baby, so her grandson, and she is also, both the lady I was talking to and her sister are both knitters. The baby was wearing a little hand knit sweater that they had sewed on a little mushroom on it, and it was so cute, and the baby was little and brand new and just like, oh, so cute. But anyways, I was talking to these ladies, and one of them was visiting from the East Coast, and how did you start knitting? And oh my gosh, these look so great. And do you sell them? And who are your favorite yarn dyers? And so all that to say, I gave them the tags to this yarn so that they could look up my favorite yarn dyer, or one of my favorites, which is Woolberry. So I don't have the yarn tags anymore, but that's okay, because you can learn all about that in the last 2 episodes. But these are the High Desert Socks by Lindsey Fowler. My favorite pair of DK socks ever. I've knit, I think this is pair 17 that I've done with that pattern. So if you need a really solid DK weight sock pattern, check that one out. That one's my favorite. It is linked down below. So there's that. So these need a bath. I take some warm water and I put it in a little container. I add some wool soap. I have mine in bar form. So I got a wool soap bar for Christmas a couple years ago from another knitting friend. So I've been using that. And then I let them just sit until I remember that they're there, and then I squeeze out all the water and put them on the blockers and let them dry. So those will be ready for my sister when I go see her next month. So the not so fun part of that story of me being at this coffee shop was I went to go put my coffee cup in the little bin because I had one of the house cups, and I barely tapped the counter with my cup, and it was sitting on top of a saucer, and it fell on the concrete floor and shattered, and I got coffee, the leftover bits of coffee, all over my pants, and I was so mortified that I made a mess and broke a cup, and they wouldn't let me clean it up, but I was still trying to clean it up, and I felt awful. So I went home, and then later that day I dropped a stone coaster that we had gotten as a wedding, what do you call those? I can only remember the word in Spanish, but the little gift that you get when you go to a wedding, where they say thank you, those things. For my cousin's wedding from a couple years ago, they had these stone coasters, and somehow I managed to drop it, and it also shattered. So I am 0 for 2 yesterday for coffee and nice things. And as I tell everyone around me, this is why we can't have nice things. All right, moving on. Works in progress. I have one that I started, one that I'm about to start, and one I am semi-ignoring. The one I am semi-ignoring is my Woolberry Advent blanket, my Battenberg blanket. I am slowly working on the last couple squares that I need, and then I'll go back to reattaching those. But some days I just don't want to work on it, so I don't. So there's that. No progress to show on that one. The next thing is a new cast on. I cast on yesterday. I'm very excited about this one. This is my first sweater of the year. I have 7 sweater lots in my stash, which is not that many in the grand scheme of things. But they've been sitting. They just sit because I mostly knit smaller portable items because I'm very busy and I take my knitting with me places. But anyways, I wanted to get through my sweater stash because I bought it to make things so I could wear them. So I need to make the things so I can wear the things. So I rolled dice to pick which sweater set I was going to do first. And I'm going to post that reel on Instagram and here on YouTube as a short. So check those out. But anyways, the number I got was it's Bred yarn. And this is also Woolberry. It's not brown. It's not red. It's Bred. Bethany of Woolberry had this whole thing about what do you name this yarn because it's not brown and it's not red. And someone just said, it's Bred. And then it was like, oh yeah, duh. This is her berry worsted weight. It is 100% superwash merino, 218 yards, 400 grams. Quick note about yarn weights. Worsted weight is thicker than fingering weight. So the yarn I use to make my socks is a lot thinner. I can get about 400 yards out of a 100 gram skein of yarn. This gives me about half that because this is a thicker yarn. So you're going to have less yardage for the same amount of weight. Quick aside. Anyways, I have 5 of these. I've skeined up 3, so I'm going to do those 3, and then if I need to get the other 2, I will. The pattern I'm doing is The Weekender by Andrea Mowry. I did this pattern probably 2019, I think. This was the second sweater I had ever knit. And I was still newish enough to knitting where like I had to look up everything. So I've learned a lot since then. My knitting style has changed since then. And I've just grown as a knitter in general. So I'm really excited to do this pattern again, now knowing more information than when I did the first time. I'm doing the same size. I'm not swatching because I like to live dangerously, but I will have enough yarn, and this sweater has 10 inches of positive ease. So you're gonna have 10 inches, which sounds like a lot, but that's like 2.5 inches here, 2.5 inches here, 2.5 inches here, and 2.5 inches here. You didn't see any of that. But it's like, it's not that much around all the way around. So it'll fit perfectly. I did the first panel, the back hem panel. This sweater is constructed bottom up, very similar to socks. So I'm starting at the bottom cuff of my sweater and I'm gonna knit up until I get to like this midsection area, and then I'll split for sleeves, knit flat for kind of this upper party part, and then I will reattach and knit my sleeves in the round. So this is the back. So it also has a split hem. And what that means is that this has like this little edge on the side, and that's going to be separate from the other edge. And where all these life stitches are, that's where I'm going to start knitting in the round. So this is going to be slightly longer. The front panel is going to be slightly shorter, so you can tell the difference between the two. And then you start knitting in the round. So very excited. I love how squishy this is. One technique this pattern has, that's my little zebra charm. Let me move over a little bit. But one technique this pattern has is the tubular cast on. There is a super fiddly way where you like hold the yarn and you twist it in certain ways around your needle to get it to all cast on. And for the life of me, I cannot get it to work. I don't know why. But I have done, when I've had to do this kind of cast on before, I have done it with scrap yarn. And I look it up every time. I've linked the tutorial to the project page that I used. It was done by Knitpicks, but you use scrap yarn, and there's this whole like 8-step process to get it set up. But once you do, it's the exact same thing, and you don't have to be worried about fiddly stitches. So there is that. Yeah, really excited about this. So that will be kind of like an at-home project, most likely, just because it's larger, and I don't like stopping things in the middle, so probably won't take that places with me, but still excited to work on it. The other item that I'm starting today are, of course, a pair of socks. I'm going to show you the yarn. So this was gifted to me by Gabs of Slip Slip Sis. We did a trade back in December where I sent her 2 50-gram skeins. She sent me 2 50-gram skeins, and this is what she sent me. So I don't have a label for it. So I don't know who the yarn dyer is. I don't know what color it is, but that's okay because these are going to be some amazing socks. So this one, it's blowing out a bit, but this is like an aqua, a light aqua, and it's got some lime green in it. So that's a tonal. This is the speckle, and it's got kind of that same aqua base, but it's got some blue, some purple, a little of that lime green speckle as well. Let me hide my face. So I think together these are going to work really well. A couple years ago, Denise of Earth Tones Girl was really into helical socks, and she did some tutorials. Knitty Natty also has some tutorials on helical knitting, but the short version is when you knit in the round, so in a circle like socks, you aren't actually knitting circles on top of each other, you're knitting a spiral like a slinky, right? So if you pull it this way, it's all going to stretch out. So that's what sock knitting is. So helical knitting is just doing the same thing, but with 2 different colors. Once I have these started, I'll be able to show you and it'll make a little more sense, but I'm very excited to start that. I've done helical knitting for sweaters before, so that the colors don't pull, but I've never done it for socks. So I'm excited to try something new. So what I'm reading and watching, I started the 3rd book of Crazy Rich Asians by Kwan. It's called Rich People Problems, so very much enjoying that. I just started it yesterday, so I haven't gotten all that far, but I've read this book before, so it's nice to kind of have things come back up that I forgot. The kids are still listening to Lords and Ladies by Terry Pratchett. I don't know if we're going to go through all of Terry Pratchett's books. He has like 40 of them, 42. And not all of them are aimed for like my kids' age and stage, so I don't know if we're going to go through all of them, but we've been really enjoying it, and we've been really enjoying that kind of dry, sarcastic humor. And then I have been watching Locke and Key on Netflix. This is a show that came out a couple years ago, more on the like suspenseful side than on the like scary horror side, which has been perfect because I mostly watch it in the evenings before bed, so that has been really nice. And then life. We have a tournament coming up, and then shortly after that we have testing for our Taekwondo belts. So lots of Taekwondo in my house right now. Yeah, we're still enjoying it. We're still learning a lot of new things. My class is doing 5 station board breaks, so you have to break 5 different boards. So there's like a kick, and then there's this punch, and then you do one elbow, and then the other elbow, and then a knee. So you have to break all your boards in class before you can break your boards at testing. I haven't broken my boards yet. I am a little bit afraid. I'll be completely honest. I am a little scared to break these boards. We do have a hand pad on, so like your knuckles and stuff are protected. But the instructor is just very blunt of, if you hold your hand like this, you're going to break your wrist when you go to punch the board. Our studio has these, I don't know if they're plastic, I don't know what they're made out of, but they're not wooden, so that we can reuse them, right? We're being eco-friendly. So different boards equal, like the different board colors equal different strengths. So I don't know what I'm going to be required to break. I've only broken boards once, and I was terrified because I was like, I'm going to hurt myself. I'm going to break something that's not a board, and my life will be over. Which just sounds really silly because I am a grown adult and I can do hard things, and I know I can hit hard because we practice hitting, they call them snacker pads, but there's these pads, and we practice hitting through them, and I know I can make the hits and the kicks every time, but it's just different when it's a board, right? And you have the pressure of you have to break it to be able to pass to your next spell. So I'm just being a bit of a wimp about it. I purposely did not break my boards yesterday in class because of this tournament that's coming up, and I was like, I know I'm going to break myself, and then I won't be able to compete, and that's going to make me really sad. So I'm going to put it off until the following week when I absolutely have to do it, and then I will be scared then. But I need to just buck up and get it done next week. But other than that, everything's still kind of going along. Everyone's in school. I'm working, so things have been really good. That's kind of all. That's all I got. Like I said, shorter episode. Stuff is getting done, but I'm still sticking to my 3 project kind of rule that I set for myself for January. I find that 3, maybe 4, but mostly 3 projects is like my sweet spot, where everything kind of gets worked on, and if something doesn't get worked on one day, it's not a big deal. I don't feel like I'm falling behind, and things get done, and I can start new things fairly quickly. So that has been good as far as like feeling like I am accomplishing things, which I know is just a personal thing, but that's how we do. So anyways, hopefully I'll have a little more to show you guys next week, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Make sure you like and subscribe. With my work schedule right now, I kind of have like 4 days where I could possibly record, so I don't always know when an episode's going to come out. So by liking and subscribing, so especially subscribing, you will get a notification every time we have an episode comes out, so you don't miss one. So thanks for hanging out with me. I will see you guys next time.